A couple of months ago, I told you about a guy who dropped off some vintage scuba equipment at the shop. One of the regulators was an old Poseidon Cyclone, and that spurred me to do a segment on Poseidon here on the show. I also mentioned that the Cyclone was complete with a set of Farallon gauges, and that there were a pair of Farallon fins that were unfortunately torn. So that got me thinking about doing some additional research on Farallon and doing a segment here on the show. I got to tell you, researching Farallon Industries was a bit of a challenge. It was difficult for me to piece the information together, so some of this may be a little bit out of sequence. Let's start at the beginning, or what I think is the beginning. From my research, I believe it was somewhere around 1969 that a guy named Ralph Osterhout was working on a diver propulsion vehicle, or DPV, that he called the Mark I. It seems that this was a pretty successful product, and the U.S. Navy decided to purchase the DPV Mark I from Ralph. And it appears that that's when he started Farallon Industries. Farallon is the name of a small group of islands about 26 miles due west of San Francisco. I wasn't familiar with the Farallon Islands, but found out some interesting stuff about them. From what I read, they were originally called the Islands of the Dead by Native Americans, and then given the name Farallon, meaning cliffs, by the Spanish. I'm not exactly sure why Ralph named his company Farallon Industries. Farallon was based in Belmont, California, which is between San Francisco and Palo Alto, on the San Francisco Bay side. The address was listed as 1333 Old Country Road, but when I Google mapped that address, it came up with 1333 County Road. Now, I like to take a look at the street view at these old locations to see what it looks like today. And today, 1333 County Road in Belmont, California, looks like a self-storage facility. One of the ways that I researched Farallon Industries was to look back at old trademark registrations and patents. When registering a trademark or patent, there is sometimes a description of the business. On one of those registrations, the business is described as a California corporation producing goods and services for skin and scuba divers' equipment, namely self-propelled vehicles for transporting scuba divers. Interestingly, I saw a Farallon DPV up for auction just yesterday. I think one of their most famous patents was also an early one. It looks like it was around 1971, and that was the Shark Dart. Famous because of its use as a prop in the 1975 blockbuster Jaws. The Shark Dart is described in the patent as a compressed gas injector weapon, including parts therefore. You may also see these come up for auction from time to time, and a complete rig gets to be pretty expensive. Now, there were a whole lot of patents issued to Farallon Industries in the 1970s. It looks like there was another Ralph involved with Farallon, who was also an inventor, and that was Ralph Shamlian. In an old article that I read, he was identified as the president of Farallon Industries and was listed on a number of different patents. So let's take a look at some of these products. In 1974, it looks like they submitted a patent for a decompression indicating instrument, and it said it was an analog computer. Then in 1975, they produced a pressure gauge and started to design fins. Over time, they introduced the Farafin, the Faralight, which was a rechargeable handheld light, and then in 1978, Farallon Industries was issued a patent for a pilot regulator that said it incorporated a novel valve assembly in the second stage in the form of a unique main diaphragm valve and a pilot valve assembly. Now, I did try to trace what had actually happened to Farallon. There is some indication that it was acquired by a company called Tecna. But if you look on the Oceanic website, they say that Bob Hollis took a big step forward with Oceanic when he acquired Farallon Industries around 1976, giving Oceanic a full line of scuba equipment with an innovative line of instrumentation products. I'm not exactly sure when Oceanic stopped branding their products with the Farallon logo. I did find a price list and catalog from 1978 that still showed a lot of the Farallon products, including their low-profile prismatic mask, their patented molded mouthpiece snorkel, the Faralight, Farafins, and all their instrumentation. They were also still producing 4 versions of their diver propulsion vehicle, the Mark II, the Mark III, Mark IV, and Mark V. Interestingly, in that catalog I did see that both the Farallon and Oceanic logos were shown together. And, oh by the way, you could still get the Shark Dart, and it came in 2 flavors, the Magnum Supreme and the Magnum Super. Well, I knew when I started this research on Farallon Industries that it would be a little more challenging than some of the other companies that I've researched. Farallon Industries wasn't around very long, but it looks like they did some really interesting stuff.